He reaches out his hand of grace to lift us up from whatever may be paralyzing our lives, so that we can walk and jump and dance in newness of life before him.
Good morning. Good morning. Yes, good morning. Happy Sabbath to everyone. You know, it's amazing that we have to have a safety Sabbath. Think about it. We have to have a safety Sabbath to talk about church safety. My experience goes back years. I'm a former chief of police. I am retired in 2015, and I'm happy that that's over with, but I did it for about 40 years. And so I've been a police chief, assistant chief of police, police captain, police officer. I've worked in city policing, transit policing, campus policing. I'm about policed out, okay? But one of the things that I've done with the experiences and skills that God has given to me is that I've tried to give back not only to the Adventist church, but other churches as well. So back in about 1990, 92, I was a member of a security group in Houston, Texas. So we volunteered our services to go out to talk to churches, do their assessments, do their walkthrough, look at the lights, look at their alarms, their key control policies, all those different things. That's what we looked at. And I remember distinctly that during that period of time, churches were saying, well, we don't really want to do a whole lot because we just want to pray about it. I say, yes, you can pray. We always pray, all right? But you have to have plans. You have to know what you're going to do if you are faced with a critical situation. So prayer, we have to pray, and you're going to hear me preach about this, that prayer has to be an integral part of what we do. So several things that I want to do today, all right? First of all, I have to scare you somewhat, okay? I have to be that Susie Downer, womp, 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 okay? I'm going to have to kind of get you to have a mental reset to understand the situation. And you're going to hear me talk about situational awareness. Where are we at now? What is going on in our world? So you know that anyway. You've seen the news. We just had a situation just south of town, an active shooter. We've had active shooters last year at the FedEx site. And so we know that churches are really being assaulted right now. Even the federal government has listed churches and houses of worship, and really that is the proper term, houses of worship, because we're dealing with mosques, temples, all those various places of worship. But they have categorized houses of worship as soft targets, along with the elderly and immigrants. Immigrants, they are not going to raise a big fuss because sometimes they are not here legally. So they're not going to complain if there is a crime committed against them. The elderly, and I have to say we, okay, we were raised that you are polite. So when a scammer calls you, you're going to keep talking, whereas another person would just, bam, hang it up. And I can take, now, I really feel bad about this. This was BC time, before Christ. When a scammer used to call, we used to have a whistle by our phone. No, that is not right, okay? Don't say amen to that, okay? Again, this was BC time, before Christ. And man, I would let them get going, and I would blow that whistle, and apparently the word got out. They have some kind of network, because after about 2 weeks, we were not getting any more scam or robocalls on our phone. But the elderly tend to want to talk and be polite. And then churches, oh, come as you are. Bring us your poor. Bring us your sick. Come as you are. So we're very welcoming. And that is why we are also considered soft targets. So this morning, I want to do several things. I want to really try to sensitize you to church safety. But what I'm going to have to do first is to sensitize you towards your own personal safety, all right? And I feel that if you can become more aware of your safety and your personal safety in your space, then you would be more sensitized when you come to church. And so we're going to be talking about a survival mindset. We're going to talk about situational awareness and also planning. So let me just give you some numbers here. According to a 2022 FBI report, in 2021, there were 61 active shooter incidents in that year. It was a 52.5% increase over the prior year. 103 people lost their lives, 140 were wounded. There was one incident at a church. And most of these active shooter events happen in public spaces and commercial spaces. Public space. So we always think about when these things happen that it's a building somewhere. When I was a police officer, we started back in 2007 with the Virginia Tech shootings. We started planning how to go into a building and engage that shooter. And there was a method to it. It was the first 4 officers who showed up had to go into the building and engage that threat. And then it started coming down to the first 3 officers. Because you see, it may be a city police officer, a school officer, a state trooper, and then that deputy sheriff may be 20 minutes out. And these situations go down in a matter of minutes. And so then it started going down to the first 2 officers who show up. And then there was joint training back and forth with different agencies. And then finally, the last officer that I sent through the police academy in 2015, he says, the first officer who shows up must now go in. And so I've seen this change. So now we don't worry so much, well, we worry about buildings, but we now have to worry about outdoor concerts, parades, going to the movie, going to a play, all these, going to the grocery store, even going to our favorite mall. We have to think about that now. And the same study says that the prevalent day of week, Saturday. The prevalent time period, 12 to 6 p.m. And then there's a 2020 study that talks about 37 incidents of targeted violence against churches. And there were 64 people who lost their lives. Now, this was during a time period from 2009 to 2019. 67% of these were motivated by hate towards a racial group or religion. Think about that, 67%. And then the other 22% had to do with domestic issues. And finally, the Faith-Based Security Advisory Council, they have studied targeted threats at religious institutions from 1999 to 2018. And they found that there were 1,967 incidents of targeted violence towards churches. They even broke it out by denominations. And 17 of these incidents occurred at Seventh-day Adventist institutions. But now, is everyone kind of down right now? Everybody, just a bit, right? Okay. But we are a people of hope, right? Now, I wouldn't bring all this out if I didn't have a message of hope for you, a message of how we can deal with the crime and the threats that are coming against our churches right now. Because when you think about it, there are approximately 380,000 churches in our nation. 380,000 churches in our nation. And we don't have that many serious incidents happening at our churches. But when they do happen, it's newsworthy. And that's why it seems like we're under assault. And even for the Adventist church, that was less than 1%. Less than 1% of these incidents happen at a Seventh-day Adventist church. So we have hope, but we should never let our guard down. We should never let our guard down. We should always be vigilant, but we should not be filled with fear. Because, see, fear will paralyze us. Fear will impact your reasoning. Fear will impact how you respond to different threats. And so we cannot stay home from church. And actually, you're safer coming to church than going to your local grocery store, all right? You are actually safer if you look at the stats, because that's what I do. I don't watch what the TV says, what the news say. I look at the studies, and I let the data talk, and you are actually safer coming to church. And you do need to get out. You need to go grocery shopping. You need to go to the other stores. You may want to go to a concert, to a play, or to a walk on the downtown canal. But what does the Bible say about fear? The Bible says, first of all, in 2 Timothy 1:7, it says, "For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." A sound mind that we can use to do safety planning to increase the level of safety in our churches. And then Isaiah 41:13 says, "For I, the Lord your God, hold your right hand. It is I who say to you, fear not. I am the one who helps you." Amen, somebody. As a matter of fact, I have a few amens right here. Amen. All right. So anyway, and then Psalms 27:3 says, "Though an army encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war rise against me, yet will I be confident." And see, that's what happens. When we get rid of the fear, we can move around with confidence because we know that God has our back and we understand what it is that we need to do. And so, how do we shed ourselves of fear and have a level of confidence? Several things. We must trust in God foremost. We must have faith in the promises that He has given to us. We also have to have a survival mindset. When we trust in God, have faith in Him, He gives us a survival mindset because we have that faith and that trust. And then we must also maintain situational awareness and, most of all, have a plan. So let's talk about survival mindset. It is it's basically mental stability under pressure, handling situations with strength and intelligence, and making good tactical decisions. Good tactical decisions. And you can make greater and better decisions when you are not under stress. And it happens when, one, we trust in God, which we have talked about, maintain situational awareness, and have a plan. So let's talk about situational awareness. It's about being aware of your surroundings and what's happening around you. For instance, my wife and I, we love to go out to eat, obviously, okay? And so she knows exactly where I'm going to sit when we go into a restaurant. I will hold the door for her. She goes in, and she sits and makes sure that where I'm sitting, I'm able to watch that front door, okay? And that's the police stuff in me. It's just that I'm just always, now I can be carrying on a conversation, but I'm just watching everybody coming in. I'm just watching their hands, and I'm just very observant of what is going on. So then we come in, she sits down, I sit down, and I'm looking around, and the next thing I look for is, where is the food coming from? Not so much that I'm so hungry, but it's because I know wherever the kitchen is, there's a delivery door there. And that's my escape. Because see, what tends to happen when you hear about nightclubs and there's a pyrotechnic thing going on and something catches on fire, everybody runs, right? Where do they run to? The same door that they came in. That's all that they know. I came in through this door. If something happens, I'm going to run out that same door. And so I can remember very clearly, Denise and I, we were at a basketball game while we were dating, and there was a fight down on the floor. Everybody started running. I said, no, stay right here. Let them go first. Let them get smashed up, against the door. I know this sounds bad, right? But I say, let them go, because I had already saw where the exits were. So I knew where the exits were. So I'm going to let the mad rush go by so I don't trip, no one pushes me down. Then I'm going to walk through the other exit. Even if the alarm goes off on that door, I'm going to walk out that door because of situational awareness. So going back to the example of a restaurant, if something comes through that front door, if there's someone screaming or yelling or acting crazy, Denise knows if I say, come, there's a certain tone, come. She knows, drop everything and just follow me out because something's going on. Don't look around. Don't try to figure it out. Just follow me and let's go. And we're going to go out through that kitchen door, and there may be a big pot of water boiling for some pasta, okay? There may be some knives and spoons and all type of cooking things hanging down, okay? Possum, and I may be grabbing stuff, but we're going to go out that back door. So I'm trying to get you to start thinking now about wherever you go, be it to the grocery store. There's always a back room where they bring out the pallets and all those types of things. Get to know where those doors are. Something that we did with our children that some co-workers really clowned on me for having done this, but we did it. When our kids were real young, we blindfolded them in their room, upstairs, and said, there is a fire. There is a fire upstairs, and you have to get out this house, and you have to crawl. So they would practice, okay, this is mommy and daddy's room. Oh, okay, this is the bathroom, the stair right across from there. So they go down the stairs, slide down the stairs. Okay, there's a landing. I turn to the left, and then here's the front door. We practice doing that with them. Now, some people say, well, that was child abuse. No, I'm trying to save my children. And so we practice those types of things because we often only go out the same door that we come in, and you may not be close to that door, and so now you have to find an alternative way out. So situational awareness is something that we have to really be aware of. So we should do that when we're out passing out literature. How are we parked? Where are we at? Where is the light pole at? Even when the police are about to pull me over at night, I may signal up because here's a street light right here, or here's a parking lot right here, or something like that. Situational awareness. Where am I? What is around me? What's going on around me? And let me give you this one last example. And this was BC time, before Christ. I was somewhere where I had no business being in there. And two guys were shooting pool, so you know what kind of place it probably was. And so they were shooting pool, and one guy got mad at the other guy, and the one guy said, I'm going to go home and get my gun, and you better not be here when I get back. So the other guy left. So, in my slightly altered state of consciousness, I said, oh my goodness, I'm wearing the same coat that the guy was wearing who just left. Okay, not the guy who went to get the gun, but his target. We have the same coat on. He just left. Maybe I better leave now too. And I left that area because I'm always thinking about where am I, who is around me, what do I need to do to safeguard my safety. That's situational awareness. So y'all, pray for me. I am still not there yet. I am no longer in BC time. God is merciful. God has saved the sinner. Amen, somebody. So a survival mentality or mindset and situational awareness should be a part of our being. That's the point that I'm trying to make this morning. That the way we interact with others, wherever we go, on our jobs, to church, to the grocery store, to the daycare, wherever we go, we need to make this a way of life, because then it becomes muscle memory. Okay? So muscle memory is something that I had to do as a police officer. We would go out to the firing range, and we would just shoot. And then we would do night shooting, night fire, then shotgun, and all these other things. And it just became natural. And then defensive tactics, how to assist someone to the ground, okay, in a nice way. And so you just, that's not funny. So you just reacted. You had to react without thinking, okay? And I can remember the last time that I went out to the firing range, we did a tactical fire where we had to pull a big truck tire 25 yards, okay? Run with it, 25 yards, pulling it. And then we had to drop it and run another 25 yards. And then we had to lay down prone and start shooting at the target. I thought that I had asthma, okay? But it stressed us out, and then we still had to be able to focus from our memory, from our muscle memory. So when you have a security mindset, and yours may not be like mine is on steroids. I mean, our kids, they all say, yeah, dad is dad. Yeah, he's always going to be thinking about the what ifs. Yes, that's something that we do have to think about, the what ifs, so that we are prepared for what might happen. And so having a plan is something critical that we have to do. So I'm going to ask you to pull out your Bibles and turn to Nehemiah chapter 4. And we're going to hit several verses there. Nehemiah chapter 4. We're going to start with verse 7 and 8. Nehemiah chapter 4. One of my favorite Bible patriarchs. And it starts off in verse 7 and 8. Excuse me. But when Sanballat, Tobiah, and the Arabs, the Ammonites, and the people of Ashdod heard that the repairs to Jerusalem's walls had gone ahead and that the gaps were being closed, they were very angry. They all plotted together to come and fight against Jerusalem and stir up trouble against us. So this shows me that Nehemiah had a good knowledge of what was going on. He had situational awareness. He said they were coming up. They were angry, okay? Anger can turn into actions. And so he had situational awareness. And then going on to verse 9, but we prayed to our God and posted a guard day and night to meet this threat. There's the prayer piece. Okay? We prayed, and then there was action. So we prayed about it. First of all, we had situational awareness. And then we prayed about it. He prayed about it. And then he basically stated that he took action. So what's the formula? Assess, plan, execute. Three things. We have to assess what is the situation, where are we at, then have a plan and execute that plan. And then going on to verse 14, after I looked things over, I stood up and said to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, don't be afraid of them. Remember the Lord who is great and awesome, and fight for your families, your sons and your daughters, your wives and your homes. So what did he do? He says, after I looked things over, okay, he did the assessment, and then he stood up and said, okay, this is what we're going to do. Don't be afraid. Again, we should always be ready to assess the situations that we are in. And then verses 21 and 23. So we continued to work with half the men holding spears from the first light of dawn till the stars came out. At that time, I also said to the people, have every man and his helper stay inside Jerusalem at night so they can serve us as guards by night and workers by day. They had a plan, they had shifts, and it was about preparation. They were prepared for anything that might take place. And finally, verse 23. Neither I nor my brothers nor my men nor the guards with me took off our clothes. Each had his weapon, even when he went for water. So it was the smallest details that they were looking at. Even when you go get water, it's important to have some type of protection, okay? Because your head is down, you're lapping up water, but always be prepared. There's a story told of a data center. This data center was impenetrable, okay? They had firewalls, they had everything set up. It was double, triple password protected. You couldn't break into this place if you wanted to, but it was broken into. How? The aggressors, they got into the building HVAC system, okay, through an opening or a break in the HVAC system. They got in there and shut off the HVAC system. It started getting warmer in that data center, and warmer and warmer. It got so hot that the computers shut down. No one broke into the system. They just shut down the AC unit that would keep the system working. And so again, it's the smallest details. What we have to really do is do the what if. What if this happens? What if that happens? And that's where a safety team comes in, because that's what I'm here to promote this morning, in case you didn't know. It's the safety team, because that team is what looks at the what ifs. And it needs to be a collaborative team, a diverse team. We need to have those who are younger, those who are older, females, males, those who may be disabled, because we have to lay plans for our church, and we have to lay plans for the safety of everything. You know what? The worst thing about not planning is having to explain why you didn't. I have been in that situation where I didn't have a plan. I can remember it was a president's son came to my campus, to one of my campuses. I don't know how many presidents have sons, so you could probably figure that out. But it was the son of a president. And we thought that we had planned some. We had the Secret Service, the FBI. We had a plan. And the motorcade came on our campus. He got out, and he was getting ready to go into the student center. And I will tell you this. It was like protesters came out the ground. The whole plaza was empty. And the next thing I saw was just this crowd of people. It was like someone sprinkled water and sprouted them, and they just popped up. That's how it was, just bizarre. And we had the hardest time getting him into the student center. And so I was still kind of new and young, so I saw the Secret Service go back to their cars, and they got their Uzis out. I said, oh, man, this is really bad. This is really serious. But we were able to surmount that and actually deal with that. And then I had a situation back in 2018 for the total eclipse. This was when we were in Idaho. One of my campuses was in Idaho Falls. They were going to get a 100% eclipse. And this town has about 56,000 people. And from our intel gathering, situational awareness, we checked around. We found out that population was going to swell to over 200,000 people. People were coming from Europe, and we were told that those who come from the various countries there, they will just find a farm field and just camp out there. We knew that traffic was going to be a total mess. So we did our planning. The fire department cleared its fire station. They stationed pumper trucks throughout that city because they knew there would be so much traffic that the fire trucks would not be able to get to those various places. The ambulance services, they were stationed various places. And those who had to get medical treatment were taken to the hospital and just stayed there because the ambulances would probably not be able to get them there. That went very, very well. And then sometimes the planning is nonsensical. Back in my early days, I keep saying early days, but it was really early days. I had the opportunity of having this security detail for Muhammad Ali. Oh my goodness. Was that the highlight of my young career at that time? So my institution was going to give him an honorary doctoral degree. So I was in charge of his detail. So we did all the planning. Me and my guys went through Secret Service training. So we had the diamond formation set up. And man, we were just anxious. We had gotten with the airport, police, so we could park our unmarked units right at the certain place. We had all the arrangements set up. And so when he arrived, this was back when you could go to the gate. We went to the gate, and he comes off the plane. I'm like, man, look at this guy. This is really him. And so we turn around, and we start escorting him through the terminal. So I was on point. We had the diamond here, and he was right in the middle. And the guy kept flipping my ear. He was walking behind me. He just, I said, oh, man, what am I going to do now? So eventually, I said, man, if you do that again, I'm going to knock you out. He looked at me. I looked at him. And we both just burst out laughing, okay? We just started cracking up because, first of all, he had just finished with a Thriller in Manila, okay? So he was still in very good shape. And there's no way that I could knock him out. And most of all, he didn't really need us there. And he kept saying, you just remind me of Joe Frazier. I said, Joe Frazier will knock you out, buddy. But the point is, there was no real plan needed for that, but we planned anyway. And so sometimes you have to overplan to be underwhelmed. Overplan to be underwhelmed. So I want us to think about vacation Bible schools, okay, once we start doing that again. How are we going to plan for that? And it really needs to be a written plan. We need to look at food safety because we're serving snacks probably. We need to look at 2 people to a classroom. If we have windows in the classrooms, that's even better. We even have to look at taking our young people to the restroom because I've been involved with a church where there was an incident that happened with we had the boys and the girls and we took them separately, but still some things happened in the bathroom. So vacation Bible schools, any type of outreach program, any program we do should have a security and safety component to it. It may be very simple that we're going to monitor parking, but it takes people to actually do that. It may be very simple about that we assign people to help others if we have to evacuate. Does everyone know how to get out of this church other than that front door? Okay. Well, that's your homework. Okay, for those who don't know, that's your homework to figure that out, how to get out of our church. And so planning is very critical, and plans should be tested. One of the things that I really hate is to see a 400-page emergency operations plan. It is so voluminous that you can't really go in there and find out what you should be doing. And your emergency operations plan or event action plan, incident action plan, all of those should be very functional. But you have to test them and make sure that they really work. And you can do that through a tabletop exercise where we're just sitting around and we're saying, we just had some people out here protesting, and they're blocking the entrance to our church. What do we do? And someone says, well, I think we need to call the police. Someone says, well, are they really on our property? What are the boundaries? How far out does our property go? Does it go to the curb? Does it go to the sidewalk? Where does it go? Oh, I don't know. Okay, so do we call the conference now? Do we call the conference office? I don't know. What does the plan say? Okay, that's when we bring out the plan and fully understand what we should be doing without guessing. And one of the things that I have found is that when you have a plan, you tend not to panic. When there isn't a plan, you tend to make the wrong decisions. So one of the things that I would really like to see is that once we get our program going here, our safety program going, our church safety program, that we have a red team. Does anyone know what a red team is? A red team is once you have fortified something, and it could be a software program or even your church building or a network. And once you get it fortified, you pay someone or ask someone to come in and break it or ask someone to penetrate it. At a church that we were going through, the conference had a secret shopper, basically, who went around to various churches and observed their church service and observed how they did Sabbath school, how well they greeted them, if the hymnals were available, were they organized. All these different things is what this person did. We can have the same thing for our church, to have someone come in and say, what are we missing here? What are we lacking here? And that is what I feel that we need to do. Everything from collecting our offerings to parking lot safety, all those different things would be something good for us to have. And it's always good to know how to de-escalate, how to bring someone down who has spun up as ushers and greeters and deacons, and even in your personal lives. How do you deal with someone who's coming at you and you don't know why they're creating a hardship or hard time for you, but how do you deal with that person? Well, we find out in 1 Samuel 25, the story of Abigail. Now, you all know the story. David and his men were running. They were on the run, and they were down, didn't have food and other things that they really needed. So David sent some of his men to Nabal and said, hey, while we were out here, we didn't bother your shepherds. We didn't take any of the flocks. We're just asking, can you give us something right now? To give us something to help out. And, of course, Nabal said, well, who are you? Who are you to come at? I don't know you. I'm not going to give you anything. And so they turned around, left, went back to David, told David what happened. David got angry. He took 400 of his chosen men, and he started marching towards where Nabal lived. Now, Abigail, the servant, had told her, hey, your husband, he's such an evil person. Guess what he did? Once she learned of this, she went into action right away. She went and got figs and pomegranates and grapes and everything and loaded up donkeys, and she just started approaching him on a donkey, all right? And then she met David. She got down. She humbled herself by kneeling down and laid down at his feet, and she used reasoning skills. She said, David, I'm your servant, yada, 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 but you don't want to have any wrongdoing found in you. She also reminded him that he should not have needless bloodshed on his hands when he is made king. So she used great de-escalation skills, and David came to his senses, and he thanked her. He said, thank you for bringing this up, and we know how the story ended, that she became later on his wife. So de-escalation is something that we need to train on, something that we really need to practice, but it needs to be something that can be done in your personal life. And this afternoon, after I'm finished speaking, we will be going downstairs to have a short, brief workshop where I'll be talking about de-escalation training and just the different phrases and words that you should never say that will spin a person up. So I hope that you can join us down there for that. We also have to be aware of disaster planning. And one of the things that I feel we really need to focus on is what I call ministry continuity. How do we keep the ministry going when there is a critical incident? So let's say that, next Sabbath, the temperature is going to be 110, okay? And Friday afternoon, we realize that our AC has gone out here. What do we do? Okay? We can't have church that Sabbath, but we're used to having it online, but how do we reach everyone Friday evening, Friday afternoon? Do we have a phone tree? Is someone assigned to call church members? Do we have a text message chain that we could send out a text message or an email? Do we have an agreement with the church across the street to meet on Sabbath and we reciprocate to where they can meet here on Sundays? Do we have all those different things in place? Basically, do we have an MOU, okay, Memorandum of Understanding that outlines every piece of how we're going to help each other? You know, Noah, he was the first emergency manager. Think about it. He had a flood coming. It had never flooded. It had never basically rained. He was the first emergency manager. And that event would be considered a black swan event today. Something that you don't think will happen, you really don't plan for it, but it does happen and it catches you off guard. Well, this is what he had to deal with. And even though he had a plan for how to build it, he still had to make preparations for how to feed everyone. So as I bring this thing to a close, there's a lot more that we can talk about in terms of church safety, in terms of awareness training for each and every member here, for each and every ministry. But as in military situations, overconfidence and a false sense of security can lead to defeat in our battle against the forces of evil. In 1 Corinthians 10:12, Paul says, "Let him who thinks he stands take heed lest he fall." Eugene Peterson, a well-known minister, he paraphrased this and said, "Don't be so naive and self-confident. You're not exempt. You could fall flat on your face as easily as anyone else. Forget about self-confidence. It's useless. Cultivate God confidence." So, one thing that I found is that God is serious about protecting his stuff. God really takes his stuff seriously. We are a part of God's stuff, and so is his property. Do you know the first recorded security guard in the Bible were angels, cherubims, at the Garden of Eden, right? God saw it was so important to protect the Garden of Eden that he didn't use the worker bee angels. He used cherubim. Now, cherubim, according to the SDA dictionary, were a special class of angels. A pair of cherubim made of gold were placed on the ark. Amen? And God is characterized as enthroned between them. They appear in the service to God and his immediate presence. They are depicted as even carrying God and guarding and overshadowing his throne. Now, if God saw it so important to protect his stuff, to put special angels in the Garden of Eden with a sword going back and forth, should we not have the same urge and urgency to protect God's stuff? You know, we are God's stuff also, and so is his property. And so I'm asking today is that, think about this. When you leave church today, you're going to probably go out, use your key fob, click, click, unlock your door. You're going to put on your seatbelt. You're going to drive home. You're going to drive past your front door to your driveway. Your front door has the the ring system on it that has a camera. You're going to use your door opener to unlock your door. You may turn off the alarm system. These are the things that we do personally for our safety. Are we doing the same thing for our church? Are we okay with how things are? Are we okay with the cameras not working or with the lights being out? Are we okay that certain doors don't lock well? These are the things that I'm trying to prep you for as the safety committee comes forward and talks to you about the safety of our church. There are three things that we have to guard. Three things: people, property, and our reputation. We don't always think about reputation. Reputation can be the death of our church. It can impact people coming to church. There was a situation years ago at a church where I attended where a young boy went into the bathroom on Visitor's Day. And, and some things happened. It got into the media. The media trucks came out. We were not fast enough giving a statement. We should have given a written statement instead of an interview. Written statements, there are no questions. We should have contacted the conference. They have people who do crisis communications. We didn't do any of that, okay? See, I don't mind telling you where I have failed at because I've learned from those experiences. But our reputation is so delicate, and all the good that we do, all of the outreach that we do, we can lose everything if we let our reputation go. It is my prayer today that we will take our property, meaning our God's property, seriously. Those who come to our church as people, as worshipers, and our property itself. I see our church and school as one unit. We are a campus. I don't see a church and a church school. There's work that needs to be even done there with drills and exercises. And so I'm looking at a holistic approach to church safety. Everything from environmental health and safety, doing an annual walkthrough, safety walkthrough, making sure that the pathways are clear. There are very few choke points. These are all the things that we have to really think about when we look at church safety. Are you with me today? I just hope that when I call upon you, that you will rally the call and really work with our church safety committee. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to share a few things. And I just pray, Father, that it will resonate with each of our members, those who are here and those who are online. Father, I pray that this will be the beginning of dedication to increasing our safety in our church. In Jesus' name we pray. Let the church say, amen.